Telling people what you should believe in has a pushing action. But if you just share your story, it has a pulling action, and nobody can ever argue with your story. And so when you want to share your faith and what you believe in, maybe consider that shouting it or pushing what you believe on people might not be as effective and as powerful as simply explaining the hope that is within you and telling the story of who you were versus who you now are.
You are now listening to the highlight reel builder for authors, the Going North podcast. I'm your host, best-selling author, and Maxwell Leadership Certified Trainer, DomBrightmon. And you're going to be getting some tips and techniques to advance yourself coming up next. New episode, new review to highlight before the content begins. And this podcast review is a 5-star review left on Apple Podcasts from I Love to Eat Veggies. And their review is titled Consistent and Genuine. Dom is a professional interviewer having truly authentic conversations. He is a joyful delight. Woohoo! Feels good to be a joyful delight. And in speaking of a joyful delight, let's get on with today's episode. Oh yeah, and before that, be sure to leave a review about the show, what you like about the show on your favorite podcast player, especially if it's Apple Podcasts. Indeed, so that way we can highlight it on a future episode. Now let's get this show on the road to North. And today on the highlight reel builder for authors known as the Going North podcast, we got another super special, awesome human for you today, courtesy of probably one of the best sites ever, podmatch.com, the wonderful site where podcast guests get to connect with podcast hosts. And if they're cool, they're freaking in. And today's guest is cooler than 10 cucumbers. That's right, indeed. 10 cucumbers, Dom. The joke is usually cooler than 2. Well, hey, today's guest is cooler than 10, a whole decade of cucumbers, because we got a Hall of Fame speaker in the building, baby. That's right, indeed. Honored by the NSA. No, not the one that stalks you. We're talking about the National Speakers Association. That's right, indeed. She is a Hall of Fame speaker with the National Speakers Association, indeed, because she is an award-winning storyteller, strategic storytelling expert, and the creator of the trademark Persuasion Principle and Story Impact Academy, and a one-woman theater show. So let's give it up for the kind and sensational Kelly Swanson.
Wow, Dom, that's the best intro I've ever had. I need to take you on the road with me because, wow, you win. You win. If there was a Toastmaster competition for best introducer, you would have just taken it all. Thank you. Thank you. I don't know that I can live up to the words you've just said. So everybody needs to lower their expectation a bit.
Lower by 0. That's right, indeed. Because my goodness, as with all accolades and introductions, they're not allowed to be the size of the Great Wall of China, and we probably only cover the size of a snail. And I'm pretty sure that a lot of adversity helps you to get to where you are today. So my filling in folks who are still living under rocks of who is the amazing Kelly and how she got to where she is today.
That's a loaded question. How did I get to where I am today? Well, for starters, I've been alive for a long time. So it didn't all happen, in the past year. It's built slowly. Dom, it's just been a series of things I didn't expect. Open doors that I walked through and having the courage to put myself out there. In a nutshell, gosh, if I had to tell my story in just a few minutes, I was the shy, quiet, picked on kid who, if you looked at me, I turned beet red. The stories were what saved me because I didn't have any friends. I created my own. And I used to think, wow, that's weird, but not really, because we all write a story that we live in. So for me, I just had all these characters that kept me company. And they eventually, because it got so crowded in my head, they tumbled out onto the page and became journal entries and stories. I never thought I would share it with anybody. That wasn't even part of, I don't know. I didn't even know that was something I would be able to do. And so they were my secret for a long time. And eventually, like any secret, it begs to come out into the light. And through just a series of weird coincidences, I ended up reading my stories. I majored in English in school. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I was just going to get married and have kids. That was kind of the plan. Nothing wrong with that plan. I just, I wasn't really the ambitious sort. And I would tell my stories at family reunions. They'd be like, Kelly, get up, tell a story. At least that's what I heard. I think it was more like, oh, Lord, she's going to tell a story. Get a drink. This is going to take a while. And it was my husband who first, he saw something in me I didn't see in myself. I don't know if you've ever had somebody like that who can just see clearly something that you can't because you're inside it. And he said, honey, you have a gift. Your stories, they make people laugh, they make people feel. That's something they'll pay you for. I was like, what? They'll pay me to do this? And where? Because I didn't fit the comedian slot. I wasn't a bada bang, bada bang. I didn't fit anything. That's also been my whole life, is the one who didn't look the part or fit the part, or what do you do with this talent, this gift, this whatever. And so, long story short, I met somebody who said, you're a storyteller. I was like, what? That's a thing? And I fell into the world of storytellers, and that's what I became, was a professional storyteller. So which means I just try to get people to pay me to do it, which morphed into being a motivational speaker because I finally realized that the stories did more than just entertain, that they healed people and they challenged them, and they, blah, blah, blah. And then, and I'm almost finished now. And then I began to see the science behind the story. I began to see that I could use story to help change people's minds, or the way they think, or the way they feel about themselves or others. And I was like, wait a minute, why isn't everybody paying attention to this very powerful tool, which they were. I was just late to the party. And that's when it began to morph into, well, why can't I teach this to businesses and to pastors and to salespeople and to, so I became the artist who also teaches my art. And what a double blessing there, to be able to do what you do and then teach what you do, which was weird. I didn't know how to do it at first. People were like, help me do it. And I was like, I don't know what I'm doing. So to kind of go inside your art, and unpack it. And
Right.
so that's me in a nutshell. And I'm just here, you know, theater came next. I mean, an agent knocked on my door and said, hey, we need another act in our roster. Would you consider doing a theater show? And so for all of you out there just plugging away, putting yourself out there in podcasts and videos, keep at it. I mean, somebody found me, and I don't have a big following. So even if you don't have a big following, you never know who's watching, who's listening, or where your video or your podcast or your story is going to end up. Wow, keep up the faith. All right. So that's me, Dom, in a nutshell. You asked a loaded question. I told you.
Ain't nothing wrong. A load of questions, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Because she shot out some wonderful gems of wisdom right there, indeed. Because, hey, it's one thing to be able to do what you do, but also to teach what you do, too, because that's a whole different ball game because you get to do what you do at a higher level when you teach it.
Yeah. And I love it because when people experience me telling stories and they experience its power, I love to tell them that you can do this too, that your story matters, that everybody has a story, many stories, in fact, and they don't have to be. I used to feel bad, Dom, because my stories were just about ordinary life and ordinary people and the struggles I was going through. Whereas some of my friends in the speaking world had amazing stories. They'd won Olympic medals. They'd, been caught on fire. They climbed a mountain and had to eat their friends. I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't keep up. My stories are just, they're just ordinary, but there's a beauty in it because your story is going to connect to the one who's going through that themselves. And it turns out that the ordinary stories can be even more universal because even more people can understand exactly what you're going through. So there's that.
Amen to that. That's right, indeed. Because stories definitely connect, indeed. And it's really an inspiration to those listening, too, because I say you don't have to have an extraordinary story where you conquered like stage 7 cancer or something like that. It's like, hey, just ordinary stories that can connect with regular, everyday people. Because at the end of the day, when you look at folks and you strip them down with their accolades and their titles and everything else, humans are humans.
They are, and we connect by emotion, by what we're going through. All of us each of us is walking a different road. But I always say it's not your plot that's going to connect with somebody in a story. It's going to be the emotion. When I talk about, oh, this is overwhelming, or I feel picked on or left out, now you're going back to a time when you felt that way, and we're kind of standing in our own stories at the same time, and yet standing in each other's. Dom, before we started the podcast, we immediately connected based on something you're going through in your family, something I'm going through in my family. Totally different, in different parts of the country, but we're going through the same thing, and that created a connection between us. That's an emotional connection, and that's what life is about. That's what business is about. That's what influence is about. Is creating those. That's what not fighting about politics is about. Is being able to meet in the middle, and not come at each other with, here's what I believe, well, here's what I believe, and fight about it, but just coming together with, here's what I'm going through, and here's what I'm going through. You can never. It's very hard to judge someone when you hear their story and stand inside it for a moment.
Amen to that. That's right indeed. Because, yeah, definitely being able to really just stand in the middle and actually take an objective view and be like, oh, wow, let me go ahead and see what's going on here. And then the good old EC, that good old emotional connection. Oh,
Yeah,
man, it's definitely true. Because, hey, emotions are powerful. Like, we can have logic all day, but it ain't going to connect like emotion.
that's true. That's true. And telling people what to do. Nobody wants to be told what to do. That's a
Hmm.
given. Telling people what to do has a pushing action, but stories have a pulling action. And you want to
Mm.
pull, not push.
There you go. There you go. So, my goodness. So, what helps you to really take your natural storytelling ability from basically random pulling, or should I say, pushing your story out to becoming a magnet where you're actually drawing people in? Because you don't become a Hall of Fame speaker just from pushing out stuff. Sometimes you got to draw them in.
Yeah. And you don't become a Hall of Fame speaker without endless practices and endless games. I'm relating it to sports. And it's not from one game, it's from one speech, two speech, 100 speeches, 200 speeches, 300 speeches. It's from failing over and over and over again, and reinventing and polishing and crafting and sweating it out and bombing on stage, and crafting material and working it and working it and working it and looking for an idea and massaging it and never stopping at good enough, but having the courage to bring yourself to the stage. I believe in our industry right now, this is not the day of the overly polished presenter with canned phrases. And I mean, you got to meet people where they are. You got to be willing to take off the face and get real. You got to be, and that's kind of been, I believe, one of my secret weapons, because I always say I never looked the part. I'm not going to come, overly polished in the St. John suit and the nice slick PowerPoint. I mean, I'm like your crazy aunt. I'm the friend next door. I'm talking about muffin tops, and I'm, pulling my notes out of my bra, going, "Where are my notes?" And that's always been the ability to come to the world as I am, and of course, dust it off a little bit, but as I call it scripted, unscripted, um, um, uh, perfectly unpolished. But the ability to come to the world like that has been what has made me able to connect so well to audiences, because they just trust me. They lower their arms. They follow me on the journey. They're intrigued. I don't look like everybody else, and so it's refreshing and it's different. And oh, this isn't going to be like the 25 other speakers I saw who are all wearing the same suit, who are all saying the same thing. But I have to say too, that being unique and authentic comes with a price,
Mm.
because often when you don't look the part, it can be threatening. It can be, I don't know, you won't always get the job because you don't look like they think you're supposed to look. And that's been the biggest struggle, is for me to really hold on to who I am, to play the part enough to get the part, if you know what I mean, but to do it my way. Even if they think, oh, this is weird. What is she doing opening her speech, talking to herself in the mirror? What, she's breaking into poetry. What is this? To come to the stage as I want to come has always been my struggle. And even now, after COVID brought me to a place of stillness, being locked down and saying, Kelly, your clock is ticking. It reminded us all that life is short, I think.
Mm,
I was like, Kelly, your clock is
yeah.
ticking. You've checked all the boxes. You can keep the lights on with your business. You know, you've got some choices now. Who do you really want to be? And that little shy kid who had that cast of characters in her head all those years ago raised her hand and said, can we please bring them out to play now? Can we do, and at, I think I'm 54. At 54, I said, okay, now is time to bust out and really do this my way. And you're like, you might be like, well, what does that mean? And well, gosh, your whole career looks like you've been doing this your way, and the one woman show and all that. But it's my Pride's Hollow, my town of Pride's Hollow, my characters, the stories. Old man Withers left us all money in our town, Dom. We didn't know he had that much. He left everybody a little bit of it on one condition. We all got this letter. And this letter asked us a simple question, asked us all the same thing. We all compared our letters. And he said, what would you do if you had no fear?
Mm.
If you had, if you were brave enough to change your story, what would that be? And Dom, everybody in our town it's our lives are changing because we've been given permission to be brave. And with Harriet, it was driving her Buick. With Pearl, it was leaving the laundromat that she's never left in probably decades. Uh, Everybody's got a story of what they'd do if they were brave. And that's my next act, so to speak, is I'm the editor of the Gazette in our town, telling you what's going on. Sometimes it's silly, like the bra we found at Buster's Bait and Tackle, or Homer's done been caught stripping in the nursing home again. And somebody needs to go catch him. Or Granny Jean got her prescription medication messed up over at the Piggly Wiggly. And instead of taking one pill daily whole, they spelled it WHORE instead of WHOLE. Called my Granny Jean a prostitute. That's right. We had one right there in the aisle at the Piggly Wiggly. But anyway, so I'm living my new dream, Dom, which is that little girl that I was all these years ago. I finally feel like I've been given permission to, or taken permission to go as an artist, be who I want to be. And I don't know if anybody will like it. I don't know if it'll be good enough. I don't know if it'll tank my career or if it'll be what they wanted to hear from me all along. It'll be the next theater show that comes out. I'll be working on that. And I kind of want to encourage everybody listening. I really do. That because I think all of us, if we walk to the end of our courage to see what's on the other side, might have something that we would do if we were brave. Maybe we're already doing it, and if so, kudos, and bless you, and keep on keeping on. And then maybe there's somebody sitting in the quiet like Harriet Bumgardner that says, you know, I'd learn to drive that old Buick before it's too late. Or I don't know, I just encourage you to not worry about if people will like it, that maybe it could be done just for the joy of doing it, and that's going to be louder than any applause you'll ever get. Yeah. So did I answer your question? It's probably not what you even asked me, Dom. Sorry about that.
There was a little bit of taste of that in there, but you did drop a line that really did pop out to me. The fact that it does have a price to be authentic. There is a
It
price you have
really
to pay to
does.
be
Do you know
authentic.
that feeling? Do you know that feeling, Dom, of trying to play the part and knowing that and worried that if you're truly who you are, that it won't be accepted? Do you know that feeling?
Oh yeah, definitely. Where it's like, hey, sometimes you know what? Let's just be real for a second, especially with my day job when I'm around kids all day from
Oh,
diaper
bless
to,
you.
well, actually diaper to diaper, diaper as in a
Oh,
month old all the way to maybe, I
wow.
don't know,
Yeah.
73, 83 with the computer. So yeah.
Oh, bless.
Yes, indeed. Sometimes like, all right, cool. Patience is required, but hey, sometimes
Patience is
authenticity is
required. So I remember one time I was in a Bible study, and I'm the type who processes out loud. Don't worry, anybody listening, I won't get churchy. But I was in a Bible study, and I think my thoughts out loud, and I'm not very smart about all that stuff. But I remember one time I was all, what does God want me to do? Does he want me to do this? Does he want me to do that? Does he want me to take this road? Does he want me to take this road? And I'll never forget. a woman said, Kelly, and she was wiser than me and older than me. And she said, Kelly, haven't you ever thought that maybe today God just wants you to go make dinner for your family?
Mm. Wow.
I was like, wow. And it really, I didn't take it in a mean way. It really grounded me. Today, he may just need you to make dinner for your family. Today, he may just need you to read a bedtime story to your child. Today, he may need you to suck it up and go to work one more day with a smile on your face. I don't know, but who am I to say?
Uh, Sometimes the solution is simple.
Yeah, yeah. It's always easier for somebody else to see it, right? I always say
Yeah.
we can't ever see it clear. People on the outside, we can see so clearly what everybody else needs to do. I'm good at that. But when it comes to ourselves, we're too close to it, right? I'm real good at solving other people's problems.
Funny enough, that actually popped this question in my head. Since you're all about helping folks tell these great stories, and since you coach folks on giving wonderful TED Talks, what's the foundation of like good storytelling that most folks tend to ignore?
What a great question. What I see over and over in stories is a lack of structure. Starting with what's the point? Why are you telling me this story? What's the lesson in it? Often, when I ask that after hearing someone's story, they can't answer. And that's where you should start before crafting your story is what's the point? Why are you telling me this? What is the lesson that you learned in that experience that I'm supposed to take away from that? Try to tell the story in one sentence. This is a story about the time this happened to me, and the conflict that I had, and the emotion I felt, and here's how it was solved, and here's what my life looked like after once I learned that lesson. Um, a story is not about just a list of facts. It's about a people. It's about or a person with a conflict, or a dream, a pain they have, or a desire they want, or both. So they're going through something. There's a problem here, and there's an emotion that they have. Remember, I said earlier, we connect based on emotion. So in your stories, you want to include not just the problem you had, but how it made you feel. And then there's a resolution. There's a moment where it's fixed or you find a way through it. Sometimes we're not on the total other side, but there's an aha moment. There's a resolution to that. And then an emotion that you feel there. Um, and then maybe there's a victory moment later down the line. Now, 10 years later, look at me now. Most speeches and stories that I see, well, let me just talk mainly about stories, is it may be a great story with good character development and good scenes and um but it just doesn't, you didn't spend enough time organizing it. People ask me, how long does it take you to write a story? And I was like, I don't, not very long. It takes me a lot longer to think about it and to think about why I'm telling it and to think about what the structure is. And then another thing I see people leave out of their stories that would make them more powerful is I need you to step inside that story and feel it and see it and share it with me. I don't want you to stand off to the side and recite it to me like it's your grocery list. I need you to step in it and show me what you see. Is there a poster on a wall? Is there something you're smelling? What does your dad look like? I can't see him. Show him to me. Um, the details are what makes the story, and it doesn't need to be a ton of them, but show me. I can't see it if you can't see it. And the last thing I'll say about stories is when we were in school, they often said, okay, write about what you did this summer. Get out a piece of paper and write. Write a story, write a paper, whatever, write. And as we were growing up, we learned to write as if someone were going to be reading it. And often as adults, we do the same thing when we sit down to write our story and we wonder why it sounds mechanical or it sounds stiff. But storytelling is different. And I would even say speeches should be different. They're conversations that we have with our audience. Even stories can be conversational. And so I'll often say, If you wouldn't say heretofore in a conversation, then don't say it in your story. If you wouldn't start with a dialogue, hark, I said as I saw the sun rise. Gross. The goal is to be authentic and real and conversational, even though you've scripted this. So I would say with your stories, and this should be good news, write the way you talk. Take out your ums and your so's if you want, or the cuss words or whatever. I mean, you got a little chance to put it together. Write the way you talk, and then talk the way you talk. The more they feel like that's you, the more they're going to connect with what you're saying. Now, that being said, I look at stories like pieces of music, and every word is a note. And where I put every word and what word I choose. And in humor, the space in between the words is important and the timing. So I will go to a lot of effort on a story to really craft it in the way that somebody would go to the same effort to write a song or a piece of music, which is kind of the same thing. Is how do you get your portray, that's what music is these songs, stories set to music in all different ways. That's what my advice to those of us using stories in our life and in our business.
Ah, beautiful indeed, beautiful indeed. 'Cause yeah, they definitely don't want to just recite off facts like it's a grocery list.
But do you know what I mean? Have you seen people tell a story and they're like, this happened and this, somebody will say, we want to tell our business story. And I was like, okay, what is it? We started in 1942 with Ed and Earl in the basement and a candle. I'm like, okay, that's great. But
All right.
nobody gives a rat's patoot. I mean, it's also about making people care about what you care about because we're here to influence an audience, not just to tell our story. But I was like, and that's not a story. That's a list of facts. A story is about people who went through an experience. That's a story. And if you're in business using stories, people are like, well, I don't know where to find my stories. Write your customer testimonials. Those are write about the people you serve. Tell me the story of what they went through and how you helped them get through it and how you're so proud to have a front row seat, to get to help them do it and how your product or your service helped solve the problem. You don't have to be the hero of the story. You can make your business the hero or your solution or your brand or what you've learned.
Ah, that's what I'm talking about indeed. Some magical gold. That's right indeed. Magical gold nuggets from Kelly herself. That's right indeed. A story telling nuggets indeed. That's right indeed. Better to write them down. Take all the notes, y'all. Take all the notes indeed. That's right indeed. Heck, bonus points if you make a story about the notes. And just email them to Kelly. Be like, hey, heard you on Going North episode 700 or whatever. Like it's freaking amazing.
I would
Keep
love
it up.
that.
That's right
I would
indeed.
love it if I inspired somebody to tell their story. That's what it's all about. I believe
That's
we're
right.
given our stories to connect with other people for a reason. I think that's what humanity is. It's the intersection of our stories.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. Plus, it's the good intersection, not the bad ones. It leads to 5 hours of traffic.
I mean, right? There you go. I saw what you just did.
Yeah, that's right indeed. That's right indeed. Tell a good story with good intersections, not the ones that leave them congested of confusion. You're
Yes,
like,
not the
okay.
one that leads to a wreck.
Oh yeah, that too. Oh god, not the Rex. No, no, don't want to avoid the Rex indeed. Unless the rec centers, maybe that's probably something. But oh Lord, the corn's coming out of me. Well, anyway, so since you've been on a boatload of interviews, is there a question that you wish you would be asked more often when you're on the guest side of the game?
Oh, wow. I wasn't ready for that one. A question I wish I had been asked more often. I don't know the question, but I'll give you the answer. I just want people to know that their story matters and to be encouraged not to hide their voice. I think my whole life's work, at least right now, is about embracing what makes you unique and different and having the courage to speak up because now more than ever, it's time to stand up for your truth and tell your story and fight for what you believe in. And I just think a lot of people, I think, Dom, what I would say is exactly what Old Man Withers asked us in our letters. If you were to step to the edge of your courage, to look at what's on the other side, if you had no fear, what would you do if you were brave? And even more important, what's keeping you back? What's the lie that's keeping you from doing it?
Oh, yeah, that's powerful indeed. That's powerful indeed. Powerful indeed. So my goodness, you're actually, I believe, now to think about it, I think you're the fourth guest on the show who's actually done a one woman show. Funny enough, no male guest who's actually done one men show. But anyways, so my goodness, so what's your preparation process like? Because I'm pretty sure it's pretty intense to do a one woman show, and especially with all the characters and all the content you have in your head. So what's the preparation like to get that over successfully?
Well, now that it's locked in, it's in my blood now, if you know what I mean. It's in my soul. Now I can finally have fun with it and walk out on that stage and play. But with every new thing, we launched the show in 2020, right before COVID. We did one show and then all the theaters shut down. But we're back and running again. But the lead up to that was incredibly intense. It was write the show. A lot of the material I've been using my whole life. So my second show will be Pride's Hollow. This first show is is my own life stories that I've been using in my speeches, with a new story woven in about something that happened to me in college. You got to come see the show to hear the story. By the way, the website for the show is Who Hijacked My Fairy Tale. The whole show is about what do you do when you don't fit the fairy tale. But anyway, you asked me about the preparation for that. It was intense. It was write the show, get a director, have a director look at it. I'm used to being a motivational speaker and standing in one spot or moving back and forth with a microphone. And now the director saying, I want you to use the space and let's have a sofa and chairs. I'm like, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't have an acting background. So all of this, I still can't keep what stage right and stage left is. The marketing, the alone was, a massive amount of work, auditions, just all these things, and this big boulder of this is new and I don't know how to play in this world. It's like starting over. They don't know who I am here. So it's I'm a no name. It's like starting a new business, in my 50s. Yes, some things helped, when they could see other things I'd done, but you're doing a show, they want to see video of the show, not something else. And then I remember I walked in an audition in New York. They have these conferences where theater buyers come meet people doing theater shows and everybody auditions. And there's 4 floors of vendors of people selling shows and buying. It's ridiculous how much
Wow.
competition. I walked in there and said, I can't believe I will ever get anybody to book my show, as much competition, as there is. It's crazy. But the biggest thing, preparation, the thing I had to go through was the mindset, because I stepped in that world and I looked around and I went, oh crap, I don't know what to do here. I'm not good enough. I need to be something else. I need to be bigger. This is too different. They won't buy it. What if people don't come? All this head trash that I had to work through, along with being realistic. It might not be a marketable show. I know I'm good. I know it's good. I know it has value, but that doesn't mean it's going to get booked all over the country. There's just a lot of moving pieces. And in theater, in speaking, your audience is there because they have to be there. Well, they might have paid to come to the conference, but they're there with a whole other lot of things going on. They're excited to see you coming. But in the theater world, they bought a ticket to see you, or they didn't buy a ticket. So you're kind of going in, I'm in these theaters. I'm like, nobody knows who I am. So there's that constant fear that nobody's going to show up. And I had to get over that and go, it doesn't matter. It's not, it's not your worry. It's not you go out there and you be the best you can be and keep your ego in check. I don't need a bunch of people. It's just feeling bad that, oh my God, they brought me in and nobody wanted it. So it just dealt with a lot of my insecurities. But that was the biggest, that's been taking up the most amount of bandwidth in my brain and my soul. But I was telling somebody that the same thing, venting about how hard it was. And she said, then stop talking about it. And I said, what do you mean? And she said, you're creating the feeling. Every time you bring it up, every time you talk to somebody else about it, when we say, how's the show? You go, great, but she goes, enough already. Enough, put it behind you. And so I brought it up to you today to answer your question about that was the biggest. And now I'm in a different zone because I've chosen to be. My brother-in-law is a golfer, or was, anyway, it doesn't matter. And I said, I don't know much about golf. And I said, why is Tiger Woods so great? And he said, I don't know if he's even still great. I asked him this years ago, but my brother-in-law said, because he walks out on that field and or whatever course, whatever. And he said, and from the second he's out there, he's already visualized himself winning. He said, it's up here. He said, the best ones are already seeing themselves winning. And that's what I've had to learn to do in theater. Even though it's not winning, it's, you've got to go, you got to own it. You just have to own it and play, and the audience deserves me to be out there not worried and just free. And I know somebody listening here needs to hear that it's the head trash. It's that we got to walk on that field like we've already won the game. That's what my brother-in-law said. He said he walks out there like he's already won it. In his mind, he's already won. And that's the mindset I need to embrace, because going back to what I said earlier, the little kid with the stories in our heads, we all write the story we live in. And we can write a story of being a victim, of never having enough, or we're not good enough, or we don't fit, or we don't belong, and we're always going to find evidence of that if that's the story we write. Or we can write a different story because we hold the pen. Life is just a tiny bit of what happens to us, Dom. The rest is the stories we all write about it, that inner script and that narrative we write. And anyway, so I'm choosing to write a story of, this is awesome. I can't wait till my next theater show. It's amazing. I'm having a ball. But I have done all the hard work now. Now I'm in the stage of show up and do your best. And it's hard. Don't hear me say that our work is easy, because it's hard when you've spent a whole day getting there, when you've lugged a backdrop, when you've lugged product, when you didn't sell any product, now you got to ship it all back, when you got to do tech rehearsals, when you got wardrobe malfunctions. Don't hear me say the job is easy. Sorry, I just wanted to say that.
Hey, I get it. And that goes back to the wonderful price of authenticity. It's like, hey, you got to put in the work to really be your best self indeed. And it's going to come with some setbacks and dealing with head trash.
Right. And sometimes I used to do these showcases, is what they called them in the speaking business, where the buyers would come in and these agents would bring you up as speakers, and everybody would do their little 5-minute, 10-minute showcase. Dom, there was a difference in the person who had been practicing that 5 minutes for months and the person who decided to wing it. You could tell. They thought they didn't need to work at it. They thought they didn't need to prepare. Now, was it good? Maybe. But the person who puts in the work most likely is going to be a lot better and have more influence and get further, because you went to practice and you did the workouts. I use a lot of sports analogy, considering I'm absolutely the least athletic person you'll ever meet, and I don't watch any sports. But I like the analogies. I like the analogies, though. The race isn't won on game day, really. It's won every day of practice and every day you got up when nobody was watching and went out running.
Hey, it's true indeed. It's true indeed. That's right indeed. Because sports analogy is definitely amazing indeed. Definitely amazing indeed. And funny enough, speaking of analogies and amazingness, you got this fabulous book that's probably, I guess, the past version of your one woman theater that's still evolving and getting better, and not butter, called Who Hijacked My Fairy Tale in book form. So, my goodness. So, if that book were a food, what would it be and why?
If that book were food, what a great question. It would be a steak, because it's got a lot of sizzle and flavor, but it's got meat to it. It is a book of funny stories that takes a look at fairy tales and the misconceptions we took away from them with my own personal stories from my life. It's a light, easy read. You get to sit down and treat yourself to a steak. You don't feel like you're going through a lot of work. As opposed to my other book, The Affirmation Journal for Positive Thinking, that's also on Amazon. That's my newest book. That is actually a book where you put in the work and you rework your mindset. It's all about creating positive affirmations and actions that you can take, and that is the steak is the end result. The positive affirmation journal is your vegetables that you eat because you know they're good for you.
Yeah, so affirmations are vegetables. There you go. That's right. Tell your children they're eating their affirmations today.
Yeah, yeah. And it is a great thing to teach our children. I wish I had, my son's 18 now, it's a little late, but I wish I had done more of that, with him, is showing him how you take a negative script you're writing and spin it around to a positive and reprogram your brain, because it doesn't just, you don't hear it and go, oh, okay, I'm great. No, it takes reprogramming, just like any other exercise you do. When I give speeches and when I talk to people about the stories you write in your head, many people say you need to be speaking to youth. You need to be, children need to learn early how to, when we were growing up, it was just man up. Well, our parents taught us to do it naturally because my parents didn't let me focus on the negative. We didn't get to complain. It was like, you made your bed, lie in it. You just, we were taught to naturally look for, to be grateful and to, and to turn that around, but I wasn't good at it, but
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you're good at it. Just took a little extra time. That's all.
yeah.
That's right. Indeed. That's right. Indeed. Well, there you go, folks. Steak and veggies. That's right. Indeed. Get both books. Heck, get her whole collection. That's right. Indeed. Buy the whole boatload. Indeed. That's right. Indeed. That's right, indeed. So, my goodness, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive. And that is, if you don't wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again, but you're still in the current year, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, if I woke up tomorrow and I were 25, still in the current year,
Yep, you basically be a Gen Zer.
my advice, save your money. It isn't about what you make. It's about what you keep. It isn't about what you have. It's what you store. That's my advice. And the time to do it is now, not later. Don't live above your means. Live under them, way under. This stuff ain't gonna matter if you're in your 60s still trying to figure out how you're gonna make a living. My father always taught me, though I didn't always listen, that wealth is that money is to be collected for your future security, so that when you're through working, you can maintain the quality of life that you have been living up until that point, and that you are prepared for whatever may happen. And many, many, many people in our country don't live that way. And I'm not saying I'm the best student, but that's what I'd go tell myself at 25, because you don't get to go back and start over.
Yep, it's true. Definitely true. That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. That's right. Collect it, save it for a good day and a rainy day. That's right, indeed. That's right. That's right, indeed. So a bunch of bunnies can hop around you and be like, hey, she saved a bunch of money. Her future self is happy. She's like, yay, 95-year-old Kelly's happy. That
Yeah. Well, and
54-year-old Kelly took care of her.
we see what happens to our parents in their later years. We see the difference in being able to have choices and not have choices. And while I do believe you don't take the stuff with you, so I do, I don't believe in hoard it all. And you could have, you're not going to die with all that. So you don't take it with you. Um, I also believe that it's nice to have choices later in life.
That's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Probably one of the best things ever. It's like, yay, I got choices. Hooray. I don't have to do anything.
Right. Right. Don't have to be working the drive-through. Not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's expensive to live, especially right now.
Oh yeah, that's right, indeed. That's right, indeed. Definitely don't want to be in one of those retail organizations right now, because then you'll be like, "Oh man, wow, get to see folks at their best and their worst."
I know, right? 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 It is a clown world right now. I'm telling you what. I don't understand a lot of things right now. But at the same time, I'm a motivational speaker. See, I told you I've been trained to find the positive, and as upside down as the world seems right now, for me anyway, it's grounding me more in it's making me think about what I believe in. It's bringing me closer to my faith. When everything's topsy-turvy, you start to hold on to the truth and what really matters. And I believe that happened for a lot of people in 2020 during the pandemic. Is we shifted and we suddenly saw what really mattered.
Ah, that's what I'm talking about, indeed. That's what I'm talking about, indeed. Sweet. So, my goodness, my goodness. I usually ask folks to where folks can find you, keep up with all that you're doing, but I forgot you're a fellow believer, a fellow Christian, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes.
Yes,
Does it
indeed.
show? I
Oh,
hope
I could
so.
tell. Ah, yes, ma'am, indeed. It shows indeed, and I could tell indeed. Because I always invite fellow Christians to share the testimony on the podcast for the curious minds out there. Plus, since we don't usually get a chance to do it anyway. So, how did you find the Lord, Kelly?
Dom, we ain't got enough time. That's a loaded question. I don't have some road to Damascus conversion story. It was just a quiet story of being in my 20s and kind of coming to that point of that sense of emptiness, of having it all, so to speak, even though I didn't, but I was young, single, apartment, friends, partying, living the life, and yet miserable. And I didn't know why. I remember I would stumble into churches here and there, and I would feel like I didn't belong there, so I'd quickly rush out because I didn't know the parts of the Bible, or I was afraid they'd call on me. And little did I know that at the time too, my mama was on her knees praying for me. And I believe there's a lot of things that go on around us in our lives. Not to sound weird to those who may not look at it this way, but I believe in spiritual warfare, and I believe that somebody knew who I was going to be when I joined over onto God's side, and didn't want that to happen. But I won't go too deep into that. But it was just a quiet moment in my room where I was talking to God, a God I'd always talked to, but wasn't sure I believed in. How weird is that? I'd always talked to him. I'd always felt his comfort. I always knew he was there, but had never really thought about whether I believed in him or not. And I've just one night in my bed as a single person, I just started talking to him. I was like, now, is it really true? Will you forgive everything I'd done? Because I was very aware of the things I had done that didn't please him, which I find very, very strange. You know, Here I felt guilty in front of a God I wasn't sure I believed in, right? I mean, I told you we don't have time for this, but just I remember just laying in my bed going, well, if you can give me a clean slate, and I had a strong, overwhelming sense of my future without him, of darkness and demons, and I don't tell too many people that, but dreams that I was having every night in a row. Well, this is getting deep here, y'all, but I've never talked about this, especially on a podcast. But I had a series of nightmares, and I never even had dreams around this time. And I just felt strongly that I was seeing what my eternity would be like. I don't know if I was right or wrong or what that was, but that's what I felt, and of what a life would be like without him. And I remembered saying to him, all right, I'm not sure how this works. I'm not sure if I understand it all, but the way I understand it, the way that pastor said in that church, was that if I guess we can say it on your podcast, I'll just say it anyway, but if I accept that Jesus died for me, then I get a clean slate, and I'm going to be wherever all your people are going to be. Not really sure about all the ins and outs of that. But I said, almost like made a deal with him. I was like, all right, if this is real and this is true, then I want to be on this side of it. I don't want to be on the other side of it. So I'm in. I don't know what that looks like, but I'm in. And I couldn't remember the sinner's prayer. I probably mixed it with the Pledge of Allegiance. But I was, I just said, hey, I accept him. I believe that he died on the cross for my sins, and I believe that I am good enough in his eyes, and that I can, I'm now co-heirs with Christ. And did the next day feel like I floated out? No, I didn't feel any different. But man, Dom, I can look back on my life. It was never the same again after that. And now I really see how cool God is and how his grace reaches out and pulls you in, because what would make me even reach out to him and crave that and want that? And I've never looked back, and I don't always get it right. And, sometimes I struggle with, well, wait, what does that mean? And what does that mean? And I don't have all the answers, but all I have to focus on is that I didn't have to earn my way in, because I struggle with did I do this right? Am I good enough to do this? Is that I'm in, and I'm co-heirs with Christ. I mean, that's pretty cool. It's kind of like I'll say to myself sometimes when I'm in a funk or trying to let world stuff get me down, I'll say, Kelly, if you were about to win the lottery and you know for sure your name is on that ticket and you're about to win more money than you will ever need to solve every issue you have out here, and everything would be great. You know you're going to win it. You're not sure exactly what day they're going to give you that ticket, but you know it's coming. Would that change the way you would live your life right now? I was like, well, heck yeah, it would. I'd have a spring in my step, knowing that even though I don't have the money now, it's coming. And then I tell myself, well, that's what you've got. That's what you have. Being a believer is a lottery ticket with your name on it. And it's coming. You don't know what day it's going to come. You should be excited about it when he comes back. You should be excited about it. You might be a little uncomfortable on the way, but it's coming. It would change the way. So why don't you live into that joy right now of what you have coming? Like I said, Dom, don't paint me as somebody who gets it right. Like I said, I'm the one in Bible study processing things out loud and usually getting it wrong, if I'm even there, if you know what I mean. So, but yes, I am a believer. Thank you for asking that of me. And I hope that anybody listening who is not did not feel threatened by that and would prove my point about story, in that telling people what you should believe in has a pushing action. But if you just share your story, it has a pulling action, and nobody can ever argue with your story. And so when you want to share your faith and what you believe in, maybe consider that shouting it or pushing what you believe on people might not be as effective and as powerful as simply explaining the hope that is within you and telling the story of who you were versus who you now are. And the difference is God. I know he's telling me, Dom, but I'm not listening yet, to help people write their testimonial stories. He's like, Kelly, you're helping everybody write their stories on how to persuade, and you're not teaching them to write the biggest story, the most important story of all. Because imagine if all of us, many of us may know, but a lot of us, even me, I haven't written it. I flounder. You asked me that. I'm like, oh Lord, I don't know how to answer that question. But if we all have that story in a structural way, that'd be a pretty cool thing, wouldn't
It'd be cooler than 100 cucumbers. That's right, indeed. Well, thanks so much for sharing that, indeed. Felt that, indeed, because, hey, it's so true. There's folks out there be like, oh, man, I screwed up here, there. I put a Z on top of the I instead of dotting it, and I put a number 7 on the T. Like, no, it's a
And that's
clean
what I
slate
always
swag.
struggled with, Dom, was all the ways that I had messed up. I was a big partier in college. There are so many things I've done that I cringe about. And how cool that he forgave you before you even did the first thing. That's pretty doggone cool. Before you did the first thing, knowing what you would do, because he's all knowing, he forgave you. Tell me somebody on earth who's going to do that. I'm just saying.
Not many at all. If you can find one, you're lucky. Very lucky. But I doubt it. Well, unless they know he agrees Jesus, but hey, he's the one that started it all. So hey,
Yeah.
that's how it happens.
And interestingly enough, I find it fascinating that God used a story to teach us, many, in fact, but the whole thing is a story. He could have just said, hey, here's your rules, here's your tablet, here's your commandments, called it a day. But he created this story. I was thinking the other day, I love the question, when you get to God, what will you ask him? And I keep changing it, but I think one thing I might ask him is, why'd you decide to do it this way? Not that he needs to explain himself, but why did you lay it out all like this? What was the point of all of, I mean, the Bible probably tells us the point, but you see what I'm saying? What was the point of all, you created this whole story from nothing. You created this story, and what was up with that? That's what I'd like to know. You're the playwright in this. You could have played it out a million ways. You allowed all these things to play out this way. What was your thinking? Kind of like sitting at the feet of the artist. This is deep stuff, Dom. I can't wait till you get this recorded so I can share it and lose half my followers. I'm teasing. That's okay. I'm not ashamed of the gospel.
Who knows? You might gain double. You never know.
See? I mean, right. Speaking up for your truth. What did I say? It comes with a price.
Ah, yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And that's the reason why I asked fellow believers that question, because, hey, you don't really get a chance to, share it like that, especially on a platform. It's like, hey, now the good news is, hey, you got to share it. And I love the lottery ticket analogy because, hey, that's freaking perfect because it's true. Like, hey, you're going to have a spring in your step. It's like, hey, the money's coming. In this way, the next life is coming. The abundance is
Yeah.
coming. It's
Yeah.
basically there by default by living and being able to move.
Right. And freedom and joy and everything. Of course, we know it doesn't mean we're going to be showered with money. It's just an
Right.
analogy, but it's even better because money doesn't solve everything. But
Hmm.
we know how this story ends. And I know, Dom, too, that in your podcast, somebody else is going to get a chance one day to tell a different story as well. And I know you'll listen to it with grace and honor and share it. And it's everybody has a story of what they believe in, and it is nice to have a platform to share it where you don't tell people what they need to believe. You just allow people to share their own stories, their own walks in life. That's the human connection.
Woohoo! That's right indeed. The high C, the human connection. You love to see it. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. So my goodness, that's right indeed. You heard it from the kind and stupendous Kelly Swanson today, y'all. That's right indeed. You probably only got maybe 2% of what she has to offer indeed. So for those who need to jump into the other 98% of what you do and probably invite you to speak to their organizations and buy some of your books and keep up with your journey, what's the best way for folks to do so?
I'm going to give you two best ways. If you want to see what I'm all about, go to my website, which is motivationalspeakerkellyswanson.com. And that'll lead you to anything you might want to check out. Motivationalspeakerkellyswanson.com. But the second way is I would love for you to join me on my platform, and it's free. It's think of it like a Facebook, but it's not Facebook. It's on a different platform where we can stay in touch, where I've put freebies in there for you and resources, and where I go every day to talk to my community. And that link is storyimpactnetwork.com. Storyimpactnetwork.com. I would love it if you'd come join me there. I'm trying to get away, Dom, from the Facebook, the LinkedIn, the Twitter, where we have so little control and we never know if people are hearing us talk to them, and vice versa. So here on this network, you will hear me, I will hear you. It's clean, no ads. It's actually on Mighty Networks, which is its own kind of self-contained platform. And yeah, you got to set up a profile. Get over it. You'll be fine. But I would love, you included, Dom, I would love to. It's just where we all hang out and talk story.
Sweet. Well, there you have it, folks. We're going to put those wonderful links in the show notes indeed. So that way you can click and go and dive deep. That's right, indeed. Get your scuba gear ready, indeed. And dive on in. That's right, indeed. You'll come out with the metaphorical 10 commandments of story. You won't even have the beard either. That's right, indeed. You might have Rapunzel hair, but you won't have the beard. It'll be a new fairy tale. We hijacked it, baby.
We did. We did.
Well, before I jump into another fairy tale beginning, any parting words before we close up shop, Kelly?
I think I've given a lot of parting words throughout this whole thing. I just hope that for all of you listening, I left you a little better than I found you. That's all I can do is, left you a little better than I found you. And I hope our paths cross again somewhere. And thank you, Dom, for having me on your podcast. You've been a delightful, deliciously interesting interviewer.
Thanks a bunch for investing your time by listening to this wonderful podcast today. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you really did, do me a solid and leave a review or share this episode with at least 3 people that you think would get some value out of today's content. Advance others to advance yourself.